Welcome to Easy Peasy Books, From Author to Authority, the lively and engaging podcast for business professionals who've always believed they have a book in them. I'm your host, Jillian Whitney. Join me as I chat with authors and industry experts from all around the world to explore simple strategies to write, publish, and leverage your business book. Whether you're an entrepreneur, executive, or an employee, this podcast is for you. Woohoo! And we're live once again on another Tuesday. I have a new friend in the house today who I got to meet today for the very first time, but I have known her a long time on LinkedIn, through the DMs, through our content, through mutual friends. Shout out to G. And here we are today. So before we get stuck in with our topic, Volta, thank you so much for joining us today. Can you tell people who you are and what you do, and then we'll get stuck in?
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for having me. It's such an honor to be in your show. My name is Volta Voloshin-Smith. I am a watercolor artist and 2 times published author. And my kind of main thing is encouraging everyone to tap into their creativity so I do this through watercolor workshops, live painting events, and general content that I create.
I love that. I love that. So let me pop up our banner for what we're talking about today. So we're talking about the art of brand building through books, an artist's perspective. And I shared with Volta before we got started today that I saw this event coming up on my email and I went, oh, that looks good. And then I went, oh, it's mine. I was super excited. I'm super excited. And I think that what really excites me about this topic, I am a huge art fan. I'm not an artist. I wish I was, but maybe I should be. Maybe we're all artists. Maybe we have to let the inner artist out. And I'm such a fan of art. I love to go to art museums, and any chance that I get to see art, I love art. I so appreciate it. And I have to say, Volta, that when I saw that you were doing books, and I think G was the one that alerted to me that you had a book coming out, and I was just like, artists doing a book? Like, that just felt like, wait a minute, what? And then I went, well, yes, you don't have to just be a coach or a consultant to write a business book. Business books can be anything, and you are an artist, so why would you not publish a book? So let's step back and, school me and everyone else. What even led you to make an art book in the first place, considering you've done 2? So why don't you start with your journey?
Yeah, thank you so much for asking. This is one of my favorite questions, I think, because it has been probably out of all the creative projects I've done on my journey so far in my creative career, writing books is at the very top, I will say. And so the way the first book came about is when I kind of pivoted from working for someone else to leading my own art business, I decided to really delve into teaching others how to paint with watercolors because I loved it so much, and I saw how much happier it made me feel, how much better it was for my mental health. So I wanted to share that with other people. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to start creating some content. And one of the first things that I did was create a class on Skillshare, which for those listening, it's kind of like a Netflix, but where you can take a class on any subject you can possibly imagine, but there's tons of variety on there. And so I was like, well, let me create a class on how to paint watercolor ice creams because I am such a big desserts fan. I was like, I love to paint these. I might as well share with others because it's so much fun. They're so colorful. So basically, created my class on Skillshare, and it was selected by the Skillshare team as a staff pick, which meant that, they kind of bumped up my course in the search of when people search for watercolors. My course was there, especially during the summer because it was a very summer theme. Well, that was how my publisher found me. They, I guess were looking through Skillshare and looking at art teachers and they reached out to me. And honestly, at first I was like, wait, writing a book? I for some reason I thought that like I definitely aspired to do that at some point, but I thought that, well, I'm way too new at this. Is this way too soon? I had like this imposter syndrome kind of. I wasn't sure, but I ended up saying yes because it just was such an exciting possibility. And it also kind of showed me that, oftentimes we think, oh, you need to have like millions of followers or connections or whatnot, like a huge audience, before you can even consider writing a book. But the reality is that you don't need that. And so basically that's kind of how my first book happened. They found me, reached out, and I said yes.
Wow. And how awesome that you said yes. And you've made so many wonderful points there that it's like so many times it's like we think we have to be at the very top of the game. It's like, well, until I'm a master, there's no way that I could document, where I am in my process. So I'm not ready to write a book until I'm at the very, very top of the line there. But in reality, you're where you're at today, and you're literally reaching back and helping someone get to where you are. And then as you move up, you will write different books, and then you'll pull those people up. So it's kind of like a staircase. And so we don't have to be at the very top of the stairs. We just have to be at one step higher.
Absolutely. Yes. And honestly, like this idea is what kind of helped me carry me over through all my seasons of doubts. Cause I was, throughout the process, I was like, oh no, what am I doing? I'm used to, doing tutorials like where I show, but not where I write how to do something. So it's a very new experience for me. But I kept coming back to this idea that really I am doing this for someone who is just starting out with watercolors. So I can teach them something that I know now to help them get to like this closer place where, I am, even if I'm not, I don't have like 20 years of experience in painting with watercolors, that kind of thing.
I love that. And you've also just explained too, the necessity of knowing your audience, who you're, because, and I think maybe because you had done the course, you had that clarity of who your audience was. So essentially, was the audience for the book the same as the audience for the course? Would you say that?
I would, because the first book is all about how to paint snacks, which is, food related. So a lot of my audience
love it.
Are people that enjoy snacks the way I do. And so it was just kind of, your traditional watercolor books tend to be about flowers, landscapes. Those are very common theme in art books. But this was something completely different where it's like, lots of people love food. And this was such a great way to connect with fellow foodie lovers, if you will, who enjoy these foods. And I get to show them, hey, like if you love this avocado, let me show you how to paint it.
I love that. And and I know that you're also about meditation and mindfulness, and so like if you think about it, what could be more mindful than instead of just like taking that ice cream and eating it, to actually think about how would I paint that? How would I capture this moment of what I'm trying to do, and being very purposeful and getting, just on so many levels. I'm just so excited about this. So, okay. So that's the first step. So when you went to do the first book, and then when you went to do your newest book that you are just in the process of launching last week, you kind of did like a soft launch, and then you're doing a big event. And we were talking about that. You're doing a big event for that, an in-person book launch, which is exciting. And I want to have you come back on the show in a couple months and tell me about your event, because I think that's something that authors want to know too, is like, so how do I launch this? What's an in-person event? How is that different than a virtual event? So I'm already planting that out there. I want you to come back. So the book that you just launched or are launching, that's a pocket book. So tell us, what is a pocket book? I love that. What's a pocket book?
Honestly, like as much as I love the first book, I am so in love with the size format of this one because it's literally it fits in your pocket, it fits in your purse, whatever. Like it's so travel friendly. And one of the things that I personally love to do is, I have my larger sets of watercolors, but I love the tiny ones because I love the idea that you can just like open up a small palette and do a little, like a quick sketch, maybe when you're out like on a brunch or out with friends or hiking, or especially like when I'm on a plane flying to help with my anxiety, I always have my watercolors. And so the idea of, oh my gosh, a pocketbook that fits along with all the other small supplies, is just I call it snack size because also love snacks, but it is literally such a like adorable travel friendly format that I absolutely love.
I love that. I love that. And, it's funny, like I'm a digital nomad, so I'm always like moving, moving, moving. So like we're moving again on Friday and we moved last Thursday. So we're like always moving. And one of the things I was thinking of when I was getting ready today for our show is I thought, I'd love to do more art, but I can't because I'm traveling. So it's like I can't have a studio. I don't have a fancy place that I could like, oh, there's my art corner with all my stuff. But you just went with an idea that it's like, if you can do watercolor at a restaurant with your friends, I could do watercolor. I could just have a little sketchbook and my paints and my pocketbook.
Yes.
And I could just be doing art wherever I am. So thank you for that paradigm shift.
Oh my gosh, I am honored that I was the one to like introduce this idea to you because it's just I think a lot of people do have this idea that, oh, I need to have a dedicated space. And for a very long time, like right now, I'm grateful I have a dedicated space, but I didn't always have that. So when I was in the corporate world, I had a full-time job, went to school full-time, was super busy, but I found a way to kind of have a little set of watercolors and just play with some colors. It was that simple for me where I just craved to get back into something creative because my brain was like all the way on the other side, very logical, all the things, the numbers. And I wanted to kind of have that balance. And literally, watercolors are super portable. I'm happy to recommend some supplies for you because, oh my God, it made me so happy to see you create while you're traveling all over.
I love this. And, and I'm thinking of somebody who's in an office, because it's like, it's on this podcast we can have people who are running their own businesses, people who are employees, anybody can be listening to this. And I'm thinking of somebody who's working in an office and it's just like it's stressful, you're working all day. Wouldn't it be awesome if you just took your lunch and you just said, okay, I'm going to go take my sandwich and I'm going to sit across the street in the park, and then you whipped out your watercolors and your little pad and you just started. Like, what would that do for just your sanity to go back and handle the rest of your day at work? So, I just think that's so brilliant and something I had never, ever, ever thought of before.
It's funny you mention it. I don't know if you're familiar with my story, but that's exactly how I started with watercolors. Is I would bring them to the office and I would encourage my coworkers to be like, let's take a break from the computers because every day, so sitting down, let's like get up and do some like little watercolor squiggles. And it is so, I'm so grateful that through that journey, I've been able to bring these like watercolor workshops to corporate teams. It's just so crazy how that worked out because it started with literally like asking my coworkers to join me for a quick like 20-minute lunch outside where we can paint.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. I love that. I love that. So let's go back to with your book. Can you tell me about whether you want to talk about your first book or your second book? How did you write your book? Because I'm sure with artists, it's like words. It's sometimes some artists can be like, I'm very good. Left brain, right brain, whatever. So did you just write your books? Did you have a coach? Did you work with a group? How did you actually get the content into the book?
Yeah. So I was very grateful to have an editor on the publisher side. So I did all the writing myself, and then also the illustrations to go along with it, which the first book, had 30 chapters. So that was, oh my God, that took a while. But I was so grateful, it kind of helped me feel less alone, knowing that even though I'm, a beginner author, first time writing my book, there is someone on kind of like in my corner who's going to make sure that the writing comes across the way it's intended to. So I really appreciated that part, and it definitely helped me feel a little better because just writing, you could write a book, but it's always important, I think, to have a second set of eyes, someone else to kind of help you catch some things or help you or ask the right questions where you make sure the information comes across in a way that, you want it to come across. So like simple, easy, understandable. So I would say like super grateful. And on the second book as well, I work with the same publisher and also had an editor that took my manuscript and, underlined, scribbled things and asked really great questions to make it the best version that it can be. And I highly recommend that.
I love that. And I think you've kind of illustrated, it does take a team. We think we can just just bang out a book and up it goes. It's like, no, there's a lot to it. There's the editing and the proofreading and then the publishing and everything in between. And there's so many different options out there. So it's nice to know that you had help. And I know on my next episode of the podcast, I'm having an editor come on, and she's going to talk about the process of editing, because that's kind of like one of those things where you're just like, okay, what exactly do they do? It's like we're all like, okay, we know the term, but we don't really know how it goes. And I think that's good that you had somebody that was underlining things, circling, what does this mean? And it just makes you help you make a better project, so to speak. So that's good. And then, so what about your cover? Just have to, as an artist, were you involved with your cover at all?
I was, in terms of, so for the first book, I sent some image options, for the watercolor palette that's behind me here. And then also I was the one that selected the main snacks, because I really wanted to make sure it was very colorful and like eye catchy. And then for the second one as well, the photo that's on the pocket, on the front of the pocket guide, is one of the photos that I took. So I kind of, staged my watercolor palettes, had a whole day of taking different photos of angles. So that was a really fun experience. But I again wanted to make sure that the right kind of idea of, like, I wanted it for people to look at it and be like, oh yeah, this is like exciting, colorful. I want to flip through it.
I love that. So speaking of people flipping through, I'm going to start flipping through some of our comments, because we have a lot of people joining us today. And I apologize, because I just got so wrapped up in our conversation. So we have Tina coming all the way across the pond from, she's kind of even farther than the pond. She's coming from Brussels today. And she says, greetings from Brussels, Jillian and Volta. So thank you for joining us, Tina. And Tina she does sketch notes. So she's a fellow artist, Volta. And I don't know if you guys are connected, but you should be, because I think you guys would just hit it off.
I'd love to.
Karen says, another great session coming up. Karen, I love Karen. She comes every week, and it's like, she just sees it as like so many great people to learn from and see different things. My sweet friend. So you guys know each other?
Yeah.
Wonderful. Hi, David. Nice. It's so nice when people come up and cheer people on. So that's always nice. Thank you. Karen says, greetings, ladies. Thank you. And Tina says, I love the arts in the background. So let's just say this is the poster of your first book, correct?
Yes.
In the background. So
yes.
Like what an awesome thing this is. And for anybody who knows G Volta was responsible for doing G's great big poster of her book. So it's just like, and I just said, oh my gosh, I think every author should have a gigantic poster of their book in the background, not a virtual background, a real poster. Yeah. I think that's just so cool. And I love all your, so I'm thinking now with your pocketbook, would you have a pocket? Would you have a little pocket?
It's right. I know it's kind of small in the background. It's a little smaller, but I need need a larger version of it.
On a little stick, it's like in a pocket, peeking out or something like that. We'll come up with something. I love that. Next comment. Okay, we got Jeff. Tina, she needs a few more watercolor brushes though. He's loving your watercolor brushes.
I can never have enough of those.
No. And speaking of G, her ears must be burning because we're talking about her, because we both absolutely love G. And we were so supportive of her recent book launch. So she says, yay, so happy to catch up my amazing friend Volta on your show today. Yay. So lovely, G. Thank you. We just love G. David says, yes, saying yes, brave and smart. Aww. And he says, a fantastic patient teacher and food. Oh, so he must be one of your students. Is he one of your students from your courses?
So not a student per se as far as a course, but during the pandemic, I used to do a live show with my husband where he would make a cocktail and then I would show people how to paint it with watercolors. Ooh. And then David was a very regular attendee, so he got to see me paint dozens and dozens of cocktails.
I love it. Could you do the kind with the little umbrellas?
Oh, yes, we've done umbrellas, yes.
I love the umbrellas. I never see those anymore. I don't even know where you buy the umbrellas, but they're so cute. I love them. Snacks. Jeff Young says, snacks. Did someone say snacks? Pass the popcorn. Yeah. So that would be a challenging thing to paint, would be popcorn, because there's just so many different angles of the popcorn. Have you painted popcorn before, Volta?
It's actually a chapter in this book. And it's not as hard as you may think.
I love it. Now, if that's not the most enticing reason to get your book, it's to see the popcorn. I don't know what is. So Karen says, this is a great topic. Watercoloring is great. It is. It's just like and it's funny. I heard you talking on your podcast, and you mentioned that sort of your mission in life is to make art accessible to everybody. And that's what you do. And I think that's kind of like you said, that's what makes watercolor such an interesting medium for doing art, as opposed to sculpting. That we need clay and just so many different things, and the oil palettes. It's like I'm thinking I'd need a palette knife and all that jazz. Or how about if I wanted to sculpt marble? It's just I'm not going to be lugging that around as a digital nomad. So it's just. But I love it. It's so accessible. So G says, I love your first book and still have it in my living room, on my living room table, where it has been since you released it a few years ago. Wow, she's like a super fan. I love it. Show us Volta. So, I love that. And G says, can't wait to see you this weekend here in Dallas, Fort Worth for your #2 book launch party. Definitely having you back to talk about the book launch party, because I just think that's so cool. So Jeff says, Volta, did you use your watercolors as a way to decompress from your work?
Absolutely. Yes, that's really what prompted me. Is I decided to get a master's degree while I was working full-time in corporate for whatever reason. And that meant that I had no time for social interactions or hobbies or anything, but I still felt that I was not happy. I missed something, and I realized that it's art. And I just randomly picked up a set of watercolors. I was like, I'll just give this a try. I haven't painted in a while, or in a long time, since high school. And even in high school, I hated any kinds of watercolors, because I just was like, this is a weird medium. But I decided to give it a try a decade later and fell in love and realized how just like you said, Julian, it's very versatile. It's pocket friendly. You don't need a lot of expensive, like even a lot of supplies. It doesn't have to be expensive. Something small and simple can get you started on the journey. So the barrier to entry is very small compared to other art, experiences.
Agreed. And then David says, hold up your book if you have one close by, Volta. So he wants you to hold up the book. Hold up the book. Hold up your pocketbook. Without a pocket even. Oh, that's so cute. That's so cute. I love it. I love it. And I like that it flips on the top because that's
so it's very like convenient, to if you're out and you're like, oh, let me see what kind of watercolor technique I want to try today. And it's, folds, and I just like the size alone and how it behaves. I love it so much.
That's great. And I can see that the idea of a pocketbook could be really used by anybody. It's like, if you're doing something that like, people need to use for like when they're doing the computer even, or, just writing in general, or whatever your topic could be. If you could pocket size that, what a novel approach. So it's just like so many ahas today. I love it. And Karen says, I'm joining from Dutchess County, New York, and I love this platform. I love that she's such a fan. She's such a fan of LinkedIn. So I have to ask you, so an artist could use a book to basically as a resource guide. So if you were teaching something, instead of recommending, okay, here's the resources for the course, go buy mine. It's just like, it makes sense. It's like, it can be part of like a resource for people to learn how to do something with you or on your own. So either or. I guess you can also use it as a lead generator in terms of like, if clients see what you do, then they say, well, gosh, I want to work with her. So those are two different things. Are there other things that you think as an artist, a book could do for you?
Well, I think we kind of touched on this, but definitely like in terms of building your brand, it can be so important because in a book, you get to share like your values and what you're all about. And that comes through in the writing. And it is such a great way to kind of introduce yourself to someone brand new that maybe doesn't know you, but has gotten your book. And it helps you connect to such a wider audience. One of my favorite stories that I've heard of in relation to my book is that during still post-pandemic kind of timeline, there were two ladies in a city in Canada, and they both had COVID, and they couldn't see anyone, so they felt very isolated. But they decided to, and it was also like in the winter, so it was very cold. So they decided to go through my book and do, because there's 30 chapters, so it's like one chapter a day, and they would just share the artwork they created with each other, kind of staying accountable. And when I heard that story, I was just, I just felt so special because you often think of like, oh, I'm writing a book to share knowledge, to like share my values in this way, but it can also help someone in, a time of like loneliness or isolation, in a way to kind of like, it can be a companion. So it was just like this unexpected side of this whole journey of being an author, where it just literally just made my whole life to know that a book brought two friends together and helped them through a difficult, like challenging season.
What a beautiful story. I love that. And it just goes to show that like, even if your book makes a difference for one person, you've made a difference.
Yeah.
And I think that so many times people, I could have you come on the show and say, okay, how many books have you sold? And what's your return on investment? And blah, blah, blah. But it's like, I don't think that's relevant. I think it's relevant of how do our books touch people's lives, and how are we making a difference? And that's the legacy that you leave behind, not your sales, Amazon sales figures at the end of the month. Like, not necessary. That's a nice story. I love that. I'm going to remember that one because I do so love stories. So, Volta, we have almost come to the end of our time together. And I wonder, is there any kind of final words of wisdom you'd want to share with fellow artists who might be thinking about writing, making a book, writing a book, whatever terms you use to help build their brand? Is there any final words of wisdom you'd want to leave us with?
I would say that, even if you feel that you're not ready, but you have that inner desire to write a book, I would 100% encourage you to do it. And kind of try to step away from the idea, I need this amount of followers or this big of a community before even anyone takes me seriously. Like, none of that matters. Just trust your heart. If you want to share a message, and maybe it's, how to be creative or how to paint in a certain way, absolutely go for it and share it with the world, because it is, again, like I mentioned, I've done so many creative projects over the last 6 years that I've been running my business, and writing these books has, like, at the very top, my absolute favorite thing. And I just highly recommend this experience to anyone who even remotely thinks, oh, maybe I should write a book. Like, definitely you should if you have that thought.
I love that. That's wonderful. Great wrap up. Okay. Well, thank you again for being here today and being my guest. You brought so many great ahas for me, and I'm hoping for everyone else today listening, watching us live or listening on the podcast. I hope this is like, oh, wow, this is great. All sorts of great things. So I'll see you guys back here next week, and we'll have another journey. Okay. Well, thank you, everybody, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to this edition of Easy Peasy Books, From Author to Authority. If you found value in today's episode, I'd be grateful if you could leave us a review. It helps other aspiring authors discover our podcast. To learn more about writing, publishing, and leveraging your business book, visit my website at easypeasybooks.com.